I'm glad to have you here. Follow my story until the end and comment the city you're watching from. What I'm about to tell you changed everything I thought I knew about my own son. At my son's investor party, he threw my late husband's music box into an ice bucket in front of 100 strangers. My 7-year-old granddaughter stood there watching her grandfather's final gift treated like garbage. I said nothing. I just walked over, reached into that freezing water, and took it back. 3 days later, a watchmaker opened that music box and went pale. What my husband had hidden inside would either save my granddaughter or destroy my family forever. The elevator to my son's penthouse felt like riding up to a different world. All glass and steel and money, so much money you could almost smell it in the air conditioning. I stood there holding a music box wrapped in paper that suddenly felt as worthless as I probably looked. I'm Lucy Sullivan, 68 years old, retired pediatric nurse widow. The navy jacket I wore was the one Henry bought me for our 40th anniversary. It had felt elegant at our quiet dinner in North Beach. Here, surrounded by San Francisco's venture capital elite, it felt threadbare. The doors opened to reveal my son's world. Evan spotted me immediately. 42 years old custom suit that probably cost more than my monthly rent and a smile that didn't reach his eyes. That smile used to be genuine. I remembered when my son smiled with his whole face back when he was building birdhouses for the Children's Hospital charity auction. "Mom," his voice carried across the marble floor. "What's that?" I held up the package. "Your father's music box, for Stella." Something tightened in his jaw. The same jaw that used to tremble when he was 7 and trying not to cry over a skinned knee. "This really isn't the time." "Grandma Lucy." My granddaughter's voice cut through 100 conversations about stocks and startups and 7-figure deals. Stella ran across the hardwood floor, all dark curls and green eyes, Henry's eyes. 7 years old and already learning to navigate a world that valued appearances over everything else. I knelt down to her level, my arthritis complaining. "Hey, sweetheart, your grandfather wanted you to have this." "Can I open it, please?" Before I could answer, Jessica appeared. My daughter-in-law, 38 years old, designer dress that probably cost more than I spent on groceries in 3 months. She placed a manicured hand on Stella's shoulder. "Emma, darling." She always called her Emma, never Stella. "That's a very old toy. You have much nicer things in your room." "But Grandma said, your grandmother isn't here anymore." Jessica's eyes met mine, cold blue like a winter lake. "Robert, this is a business event. Perhaps another time would be more appropriate." Robert. She'd never called me Lucy in 3 years of marriage to my son. Always Robert, like my husband was still alive and I was just borrowing his name. Evan moved closer. I could smell whiskey on his breath and it was only 7:30. "Mom, this isn't appropriate. Your mother—" He caught himself. "She's gone. It's time to stop living in the past." Stella tugged at his sleeve with small, persistent fingers. "But Daddy Grandma said it plays Claire de Lune. That's the song Grandpa Henry used to play for me." My throat tightened. Henry had played that song for her every night during those last months when the cancer was eating him alive, but he refused to let Stella see him scared. Evan glanced around at his watching guests. Investors in $1,000 suits, women dripping with jewelry that could fund a small country. Something hardened in his face, that same hardness I'd seen growing over the past 5 years, like watching ice form over a pond. He grabbed the music box from my hands. "Son, this sentimental junk doesn't belong here." He walked to the bar, all granite and chrome and bottles that cost more than my monthly prescription budget, and without hesitation dropped the music box straight into a bucket of melting ice and champagne bottles. The splash was small. The silence that followed was enormous. Stella made a sound like a wounded animal. "Daddy, that's Grandpa's." "You'll get over it, Emma." He turned back to his guests, CEO smile sliding into place like a mask. "Sorry about the interruption, folks. Family, you know how it is." Nervous laughter rippled through the room. People looked away, suddenly fascinated by their champagne glasses, by the view of the Bay Bridge glittering through floor-to-ceiling windows, by anything except the old woman standing in the middle of their party. I didn't shout. My mother taught me that anger expressed loudly is anger wasted. Instead, I walked to that bar, reached into the ice water, cold enough to make my arthritis scream in protest, and pulled out the music box. Water dripped onto my sleeve. I wiped it carefully with my handkerchief, the one Henry had embroidered with my initials during a bout of insomnia in hospice. My hands weren't shaking. Not yet. Then I looked at my son. My boy. The child I'd taught to ride a bike, held through nightmares, put through Stanford on a nurse's salary, and Henry's software engineering income. Somewhere along the way, I'd lost him to this world of profit margins and investor returns. Your father left Stella more than you know, Evan. My voice came out quiet but steady. You just threw away your daughter's inheritance. His eyes narrowed. What are you talking about? I didn't answer. Instead, I turned to Stella, who was crying into Jessica's dress, though Jessica's hand on her shoulder looked more like a restraint than comfort. Don't worry, sweetheart. Grandma's keeping the music box safe, just like Grandpa wanted. I walked out. The elevator doors closed on 100 staring faces, and my son's expression, something between confusion and contempt. The drive home through San Francisco's fog took 20 minutes, but felt like hours. The music box sat on the passenger seat, still damp with champagne, and my son's shame. My Richmond district apartment couldn't have been more different from Evan's penthouse. No city views, no designer furniture, just 2 bedrooms and a kitchen that hadn't been updated since the 90s. But it had been ours. Mine and Henry's. Every chip in the countertop told a story. I carried the box inside past photographs I couldn't bear to take down. Henry at our wedding, his hair dark and his smile bright with possibility. Henry holding baby Evan, both of them asleep in the rocking chair. Henry and Stella that last summer before he got sick building a sandcastle at Ocean Beach. I set the music box on our old kitchen table, the one we'd bought at a yard sale 40 years ago because we couldn't afford new furniture. Made tea. Earl Grey the way Henry taught me to make it with milk and 1 sugar. As the kettle heated, a memory hit me sharp and sudden. 2 years ago. Henry in the hospice bed we'd set up in our living room, his voice paper thin but his eyes still sharp. Lucy, I want Stella to have this music box. Of course, darling. We'll give it to her when she's older. No. His hand found mine fingers skeletal, but grip surprisingly strong. Promise me you'll give it to her. If Evan truly changes, he'll respect that. If he doesn't... He paused, gathering strength. You'll know what to do. Henry, I don't understand. This box holds more than music, my love. His eyes held mine with an intensity that made my chest ache. It holds our values. Stella will need them. He passed away 3 days later. 7:42 in the morning with me holding his hand and Claire de Lune playing softly from the music box on his nightstand. The kettle whistled, pulling me back to the present. I made my tea but couldn't drink it. My hands were shaking now, the adrenaline from the party finally catching up. I opened the music box with careful fingers. The first notes of Claire de Lune filled my small kitchen. Delicate melancholy, beautiful. The same melody that had played through Henry's last breaths. Through Stella's bedtimes, through 40 years of quiet evenings when Henry would take my hand and we'd dance in this very kitchen, no music, except this box. I finally let myself cry. Real tears, the kind that come from somewhere deep and hurt on the way out. My son had thrown his father's love in the trash, in front of his daughter, in front of strangers. I wiped my eyes with the back of my hand. The music wound down slowly, each note stretching like it didn't want to let go. That's when I noticed it. The box felt heavier than I remembered. Not by much, maybe the weight of a paperback book, but I'd held this box dozens of times over the years. Lifted it to dust. Carried it from room to room. I turned it over in my hands, examining it the way I used to examine charts at the hospital. Looking for what didn't fit. The wood seemed thicker at the base. The proportions slightly off. Henry had been a software engineer, not a craftsman. He wouldn't have noticed something like this. But he'd known craftsmen. Had coffee every Sunday morning with Tommy Morrison, the watchmaker in North Beach, who'd emigrated from Ireland 40 years ago. My late husband had spent his final year planning something. Between doctor's appointments and treatments that left him gray and shaking, he'd been meticulous. His will, his wishes, his provisions for Stella's education fund. I ran my fingers along the base of the box, feeling for seams, for anything that shouldn't be there. Henry, I whispered to the empty kitchen, to the photographs on the wall, to the memory of him. What secrets did you hide inside? The music box gave no answer. Just sat there on our old table, heavier than it should be, holding mysteries I couldn't yet name. But I would find out. Tomorrow I'd take it to someone who understood these things. Someone who could tell me if my suspicions were right. And if they were, If Henry had left something inside this box besides music and memory, then Evan had made a mistake tonight. A very expensive mistake. Sunday morning fog wrapped North Beach in gray silence as I walked up the steep hill to Tommy Morrison's shop. My calves burned with the climb, but I'd made this walk 100 times. Even after Henry died, I'd come here once a month. Tommy had been his best friend, and some friendships don't end just because one person is gone. The sign above the door, Morrison's Timepieces and Antiques, had faded to ghost letters. But I could have found this place blindfolded. The bell jangled as I entered. Tommy looked up from his workbench, magnifying glasses perched on his forehead. 72 years old, with hands steadier than mine had ever been, and a memory for mechanical movements that bordered on supernatural. "Lucy," he set down his tools, tiny screwdrivers and tweezers that looked like they belonged in a dollhouse. "You look like you've seen a ghost." I placed Henry's music box on his workbench between a Victorian clock and a collection of gears so small they looked like they'd been made for fairies. "Evan threw this in the trash last night, at his investor party. Stella watched him do it." Tommy's jaw tightened. He'd met Evan twice and told me both times that my son had the soul of a collections agency, coming from Tommy, who loved everyone that was harsh. He pulled down his magnifying glasses and switched on his LED work light. For several minutes, Tommy examined the box in silence, turning it over, running his fingers along the edges, occasionally making small, thoughtful sounds that meant he was seeing something I'd missed. Finally, he reached for his precision tools. "This is Swiss," he said quietly. 1958, maybe 60. The movement is Patek Philippe. You can tell by the balance wheel design. He adjusted his glasses, peering closer. These were handmade, each one unique. Henry said he bought it at an estate sale in Noe Valley. He got a hell of a deal then. This thing is worth at least $5,000, just for the mechanism. $5,000. Evan had thrown $5,000 into the trash like garbage. But that's not what matters. Tommy's voice changed, took on that tone he used when he'd found something extraordinary. "This base plate is too thick. Standard music boxes have a 1mm base. This one is 3mm. He inserted a thin tool into what looked like a decorative groove along the bottom edge. There was a soft click. The base swung open like a trap door. My heart stopped. Inside was a compartment lined with dark blue velvet. And nestled in that velvet were 4 thick documents in clear plastic sleeves perfectly preserved. Tommy carefully removed the first one and held it under his light. "Stock certificates," he breathed. I leaned closer, my hands gripping the edge of the workbench. The certificate had ornate borders and raised seals, the kind they don't make anymore. But it was the words that made my blood run cold. The date, March 15th, 2008. Henry's signature at the bottom, bold and clear. Below it, a witness signature, Patricia Williams, Esquire. Each certificate represented $50,000. 4 certificates, $200,000 total. Henry invested in Evan's company. Tommy's voice was barely audible. "Did you know?" I shook my head, unable to speak. Henry had never mentioned this. Not once in the 6 years before he'd passed away. Not during those long nights when we'd talked about everything. Our regrets, our hopes, what we wanted for Stella. $200,000 was our entire retirement fund. Everything we'd saved in 40 years of marriage. Tommy was already on his phone, typing rapidly with his thumbs. "Apex Capital Tech Ventures. Here it is." He went quiet, his eyes scanning. Then his face went white. "Lucy, sit down." "What sit down?" I sat on the stool he kept for customers, my legs suddenly unreliable. Apex Capital was acquired by Tech Venture Group in October 2016. His fingers flew across his calculator app. The sale price was $180 million. He stopped, double-checked his math. 15% of that is... He looked up at me with something between horror and amazement. $27 million. The room tilted. I grabbed the workbench. "Hey, how much? $27 million. Henry invested your retirement money into Evan's dream and..." He paused, the weight of it settling over both of us. "Evan just threw away the proof of Stella's inheritance." There was more in the compartment. Tommy pulled out a folded piece of yellowed paper, unfolding it with the same care he'd use on a centuries-old manuscript. Henry's handwriting covered one side, the letters slightly shaky. He must have written this near the end. Tommy handed it to me without a word. I read it 3 times, each word cutting deeper. "My dearest Stella, These shares are registered in trust for Stella Rose Sullivan. They belong to you, sweetheart, not to your father. In March 2008, when Evan needed help most, I invested our retirement savings, $200,000, using money from 40 years of your grandmother's nursing work and my engineering career. I didn't tell your father it was me. I wanted him to succeed on his own merit, to build something with integrity. I didn't tell your grandmother either. She would have said no. She was right to want to say no. It was a risk, and we weren't young anymore. I went behind her back, and I'm not proud of that. But I believed in our son. I registered these shares in your name because even then, sweetheart, I saw something changing in your father. The boy who once built birdhouses for sick children was becoming a man who only valued profit. If your father treasures this music box when your grandmother tries to give it to you, it means he's learned what truly matters. Family, legacy, love. If he's thrown it away, well then he values money more than memory. And you'll need this inheritance to build a life he can't control. Your grandmother Lucy is the strongest woman I've ever known. She raised a son, worked night shifts to put him through college, held my hand through cancer, and never once complained. Trust her. She'll protect you when I can't. All my love forever, Grandpa Henry. I read it a 4th time, then a 5th. My vision blurred with tears. I didn't try to stop. Your wife, Tommy said softly, was brilliant. My husband, I corrected automatically. Right, sorry, Henry. He was brilliant. Evan has no idea. My voice sounded hollow, like it was coming from someone else. He threw away $27 million because he was embarrassed by a music box. He threw away his daughter's entire future because the box wasn't expensive enough for his penthouse. Tommy carefully placed everything back into the hidden compartment and closed it. The music box looked innocent again, just a beautiful antique with a secret that could destroy an empire. "What are you going to do?" he asked. I picked up the box, feeling the weight of Henry's love and planning in my hands, feeling the weight of $200,000 in 2008 becoming $27 million in 2024, feeling the weight of a choice: let Evan continue down this path or fight for my granddaughter. Evan had made his choice when he'd thrown this into the trash. He'd chosen his image over his daughter, his greed over his father's memory. "I'm going to protect Stella," I said. "I'm going to make sure she gets what Henry wanted her to have. And I'm going to make sure Evan understands exactly what he threw away." Tommy nodded slowly. "You'll need a lawyer. A good one. I know just who to call." I thought of Patricia Williams's signature on those certificates. Henry's lawyer. Witness to the investment. She'd known all along. "Lucy," Tommy called after me as I headed for the door. The fog had lifted slightly, letting pale sunlight break through. Men like Evan don't give up $27 million without a fight. I tucked the music box under my arm. I'm counting on it. Monday morning, I stood outside Patricia Williams' office building in the financial district, clutching the music box like it might disappear if I loosened my grip. The elevator ride to the 14th floor gave me too much time to think. What if Patricia couldn't help? What if the stock certificates weren't valid after all these years? What if Evan had already found some legal loophole to steal Stella's inheritance? The glass doors opened into a reception area that smelled like leather and expensive coffee. The receptionist, a young woman with perfect makeup and a smile that looked painted on, directed me to Patricia's corner office. Patricia Williams stood as I entered. Early 50s, silver-streaked hair pulled back in a no-nonsense bun, and eyes that looked like they'd seen every dirty trick in the book and invented a few of their own. Tommy had recommended her 3 years ago when Henry's health started declining. "Best elder law attorney in the city," he'd said. "Smart, tough, and she actually gives a damn." "Lucy," she shook my hand with a grip that could crack walnuts. "Tommy called yesterday and gave me the basics. Let's see what we're dealing with." I set the music box on her mahogany desk. She opened it carefully, listened to the first few notes of Claire de Lune, then triggered the hidden compartment with practiced ease. Tommy must have told her how it worked. Patricia spread the 4 stock certificates across her desk like playing cards, then pulled a legal pad toward her and started writing notes in rapid shorthand. For 10 minutes, the only sounds were her pen scratching and the distant hum of traffic 14 floors below. Finally, she looked up. "This is worse than I thought, and better. I'm not sure I like either of those options. The certificates are legitimate." She tapped one with her pen. "Henry purchased 15% of Apex Capital in March 2008, registered as in trust for Stella Rose Sullivan. That means Stella is the legal beneficiary, not Evan." She pulled a file from her desk drawer. I handled Henry's estate planning. Let me check something. She flipped through pages, her finger tracing lines of legal text. Then she stopped and a slow smile crossed her face. It wasn't a pleasant smile. Section 7, paragraph 3, the character clause. She read aloud. If any heir demonstrates serious disrespect for family legacy or the memory of the deceased, the executor, that's you, Lucy, may contest their inheritance rights and seek reallocation to protect minor beneficiaries. The music box, I breathed. Exactly. Henry knew Evan might turn out like this, so he built in a legal tripwire. You have grounds to challenge Evan's actions, protect Stella's inheritance, and potentially recover the $27 million with interest and penalties. Patricia leaned back in her chair. This is a winnable case. Difficult, expensive, and messy, but winnable. For the first time in 2 days, I felt something like hope stirring in my chest. What do we do next? Patricia's expression shifted from satisfaction to concern. We need to be very, very careful. I did some additional research after Tommy's call. She pulled out another document. Evan's company, his new venture after the Apex sale, is in serious trouble. He owes creditors approximately $15 million. There are rumors of an SEC investigation. His business model looks suspiciously like a pyramid scheme dressed up in tech industry buzzwords. He's broke worse. He's desperate. And desperate men don't think clearly. She pulled out her phone. If Evan discovers these certificates exist before we have everything in place, he'll fight back with everything he has. Men in his position often try to discredit opponents, tie up assets in litigation, or... She hesitated. Or what then? They go after competency. If Evan can prove you're not mentally fit to serve as executor of Henry's estate, he can have you removed and potentially take control of Stella's trust himself. My blood ran cold. A conservatorship. It's called elder abuse when it's done for financial gain. But yes, Evan could hire doctors to evaluate you, claim you're suffering from dementia or cognitive decline, and petition the court to place you under his legal guardianship. It's horrifyingly common in inheritance disputes, and it's very difficult to defend against once the process starts. I thought about the investor party, the way Evan had looked at me with contempt when I'd retrieved the music box from the trash, the way Jessica had smirked. They'd already decided I was a foolish old woman living in the past. He'll come after me, I said quietly, the moment he realizes what I have. Yes, Patricia closed the file. Lucy, I need you to understand what we're up against. Evan will hire the best lawyers money can buy or money he can borrow. He'll attack your credibility, your mental state, your fitness as a guardian. He'll make you look dangerous or incompetent or both. And he'll do it publicly because that's how men like him operate. What do? We build an airtight case before he knows we're coming. We need documentation of his fraud witness statements from the party medical evaluations proving your competency and evidence of Evan's unfitness as a parent. She pulled out a business card and slid it across the desk. This is Daniel Foster. He's a private investigator, former FBI. If Evan has skeletons, and based on what I've seen, he has a cemetery full, Daniel will find them. I took the card. Daniel Foster, Private Investigations. A San Francisco phone number. Patricia, I said carefully, when Evan realizes those certificates exist and that I'm not backing down, what will he do? She met my eyes, and I saw the truth there before she spoke. Desperate men don't play by the rules, Lucy. They play to win no matter who gets hurt. And right now you're standing between Evan and $27 million he thinks belongs to him. My phone rang that night as I was making dinner. Grilled cheese sandwich, the only thing I could manage with hands that wouldn't stop shaking. Evan's name on the screen. I thought about not answering. But Patricia's words echoed, "We need evidence of everything." I hit record on my phone's voice memo app, then answered. "Hello, Evan." "Mom?" His voice was cold, controlled. "We need to talk about last night." "I'm listening." "You embarrassed me in front of 100 investors. Showing up with that ridiculous music box, making a scene. I didn't make the scene, Evan. You did. I'm calling to make something very clear. Don't contact Stella. Throw that music box away. It's over. I'm not throwing away your father's gift to Stella." There was a pause. Then his voice changed, took on a tone of false sympathy that made my skin crawl. "Mom, I'm worried about you. You're 68 years old, living alone. Your judgment is slipping. People at the party noticed your behavior wasn't normal. My hand tightened on the phone. My judgment is fine, Evan. Is it because from where I'm sitting you need help? Professional supervision. Jessica and I have been discussing it may be a care facility where people can look after you properly. The threat landed like a physical blow. A care facility. A nursing home. Loss of independence. Loss of control. Loss of everything. I don't need a nursing home. I have witnesses who will testify you're not capable of managing your own affairs. I have documentation. When the time comes, Mom, I'll take the legal steps necessary to ensure you're properly cared for. It's what Dad would have wanted. The mention of Henry shattered something inside me. Don't you dare tell me what your father would have wanted. This conversation is over. Lose the music box. Stay away from my family. Or I'll have doctors evaluate you, and we both know what they'll find. He hung up. I stood in my kitchen phone, still pressed to my ear, grilled cheese burning on the stove. Then I called Patricia Williams and told her everything. Did you record it? She asked immediately. Yes. Good. That's evidence of elder abuse threats. We're filing for emergency medical evaluation tomorrow morning. UCSF has the best neurologists in the state. We're going to prove you're completely competent before Evan can make his move. I looked at the music box sitting on my kitchen table. Henry's last gift. Henry's last weapon. Patricia, what if we lose, then we lose? But Lucy, we're not going to lose. Because Henry didn't spend his last months building this protection just to have it fail. And I didn't witness those stock certificates just to watch them get stolen. After I hung up, I sat alone at my kitchen table. The grilled cheese was charcoal. I scraped it into the trash and made another one. Tomorrow, the real fight would begin. But tonight I had Henry's music box. I had proof of $27 million. And I had something Evan had forgotten. I was a nurse for 35 years. I'd held dying patients' hands. I'd told parents their children wouldn't survive the night. I'd worked double shifts with broken ribs and kept smiling. My son thought I was weak because I was old. He was about to learn the difference between age and weakness. I wound the music box. Claire de Lune filled my small kitchen, and I started planning my next move. Tuesday afternoon, I sat across from Daniel Foster in a small office that smelled like old coffee and determination. The space was nothing fancy, just a desk, 2 chairs, and walls covered with framed commendations from his FBI days. Daniel himself looked like someone who'd spent 30 years learning how to read people and never forgot a single lesson. Mid-50s graying hair cut military short and eyes that missed nothing. I work fast when kids are involved, he said, sliding a thick manila folder across the desk. What I found in 48 hours isn't pretty, Lucy. Are you sure you want to see this? I thought about Stella's face when Evan had thrown the music box away. The way she'd flinched when he'd raised his voice. The way she'd whispered, I want to stay with you, Grandma. Show me everything. Daniel opened the folder. The first document was a bank statement with a Cayman Islands header. Numbers that made my head spin, deposits, transfers, withdrawals, and amounts I'd never seen outside of hospital billing statements. Your son has been moving money offshore for 6 months, Daniel said. $3 million across 4 accounts, Cayman Islands, Singapore, and 1 in Zurich. The transfers started small to avoid triggering automatic reports, but they accelerated 3 weeks ago. $3 million. While I was rationing my blood pressure medication because Medicare didn't cover the full cost. He's planning to run, I said. Not planning. Preparing. Daniel pulled out printed airline confirmations. Singapore Airlines. Departures scheduled for this Friday night. 3 one-way tickets, first class. Friday, 4 days from now. 3 tickets. Evan Sullivan, Stella Rose Sullivan, and Olivia Grace Harrison. Who's Olivia Harrison? 28 years old financial analyst at Pinnacle Ventures, the same firm currently suing Evan for fraud. They met 8 months ago. The affair started shortly after. He pulled out printed text messages, laid them across the desk like evidence at a crime scene. I read them with a nurse's clinical detachment, the same way I used to read patient charts describing things no one should have to endure. Evan tickets confirmed. Yumi and E. New life starts Friday. Olivia, what about your wife, Evan dead weight? Jessica stays. Divorce from abroad. Cleaner that way. Olivia, and the kid Evan Stella has trust fund access at 25. Worth the inconvenience. I stared at that last message. Worth the inconvenience. That's what my granddaughter was to him. An inconvenience worth tolerating for access to money. Money he didn't even know existed yet. He's taking Stella because of money, I said quietly. He doesn't know about the $27 million, but he thinks Henry left something substantial. He's taking her to control her future inheritance. Daniel's jaw tightened. Singapore has complicated extradition, Lucy. Once Evan gets Stella out of the country, especially if he claims he's protecting her from an unstable grandmother getting her back, becomes exponentially harder. He pulled out a different folder. There's more, and this is where it gets really ugly. Inside were school documents, printed emails, and what looked like medical notes. Stella's school counselor, Ms. Jennifer Roberts, has been keeping notes for 2 years. With Patricia's legal justification, I obtained copies through child welfare protocols. I read the first entry dated 18 months ago. Stella Sullivan, age 6, exhibits persistent anxiety when discussing her father. She describes feeling like she can't do anything right and expresses fear of disappointing him. Recommend monitoring. Another entry from 6 months ago, Stella arrived upset today. Her father criticized her straight A's because they weren't good enough for Stanford. She's 7 years old. She asked if there was extra credit to make him proud. Concerning pattern emerging. A third entry from 3 months ago. Stella flinched during fire drill. When asked if loud noises scared her, she said, "Only when Daddy's voice gets loud." Requested parent conference. Father declined. Grandmother attended and expressed deep concern. I couldn't breathe. These notes read like a catalog of suffering I'd been too blind to see. Stella had been hurting for years, and I thought Evan was just being demanding. I'd called it high standards. Tough love. God forgive me. There's video, Daniel said quietly. He opened his laptop. Security footage from Evan's building lobby dated 3 weeks ago. Stella and Evan entering. Stella in her school uniform carrying a heavy backpack that looked too big for her small frame. The audio was clear. I got an A- on my math test. Stella's voice small and hopeful. Evan stopped walking. His expression hardened in a way that made my chest ache. An A-. Do you think that's acceptable? I'm sorry, Daddy. The teacher said it was really good. I don't care what your teacher said. Your teacher isn't trying to build a legacy. His voice was cold-controlled, worse than yelling. You embarrass me, Stella. Every time you settle for good enough, you embarrass this family. Stella's shoulders hunched inward like she was trying to make herself smaller. I'm sorry. I'll do better. Sorry doesn't fix mediocrity. Go to your room. I don't want to look at you right now. The video continued, Stella walking to the elevator alone, a small figure hunched and defeated. She pressed the button and waited perfectly still, like any movement might make things worse. When the doors opened, she stepped inside and stood facing the corner, head down. A 7-year-old child who'd learned that the safest place was where no one could see her face. Daniel stopped the video. I sat there, hands pressed flat against my thighs to stop them from shaking. That was my granddaughter, my Stella, being destroyed one criticism at a time by her own father. That's emotional abuse, Daniel said gently. Clear pattern, documented evidence, multiple witnesses, and there's one more thing. He pulled out a printed email. From Henry to Patricia Williams, dated March 2022, 4 months before he died. I read it with tears streaming down my face. Patricia, I'm worried about Stella. Evan is too harsh with her. She's only 7 and already terrified of failure. She flinches when he raises his voice. She cries herself to sleep after he criticizes her. I've tried talking to him. He says I'm being soft, that the world is competitive and Stella needs to learn early. I need to know Stella will be protected if something happens to me. Can we adjust the trust parameters? Build in protections. Henry. Patricia's response. Henry, I'll draft the character clause we discussed. If Evan demonstrates serious disrespect for family legacy or harmful behavior toward Stella, Lucy can intervene. The trust will protect Stella's inheritance and give legal grounds to ensure her well-being. Come by next week to review and sign. Patricia, your husband knew, Daniel said quietly. He knew what Evan was doing, and he built a legal escape hatch. The music box, the stock certificates, the character clause, everything designed to give you the tools to save Stella when the time came. The pieces fell into place with sickening clarity. Henry hadn't hidden the certificates to test Evan. He'd hidden them because he knew Evan would steal Stella's inheritance, abuse her emotionally, and take her somewhere I couldn't follow. The music box was a message: save her. I gave you everything you need. Every decision Henry made in those final months suddenly made sense. The meticulous planning, the careful legal language, the hidden compartment. Henry had been dying, but he'd used every moment to protect the granddaughter he wouldn't live to see grow up. "What do we do?" My voice cracked. "We have 4 days before Evan boards that plane." Daniel pulled out his phone. "Patricia's filing emergency petitions, but we need—" My phone rang. Evan's name on the screen. Daniel's hand shot out. "Don't answer? If he's calling out of the blue, he might know we're investigating. Anything you say can be used in court." But the phone kept ringing. I thought about Stella in that elevator, shoulders hunched facing the corner. I thought about Evan planning to take her to Singapore with a woman who saw her as an inconvenience. I thought about Henry building this protection because he knew I'd need it. I picked up the phone. "Hello, Evan." Daniel's fingers flew across his keyboard. A red recording light appeared on screen. He gestured for me to put the phone on speaker, and my son's voice filled the small office about to give us everything we needed to save my granddaughter. "Mom," Evan's voice came through the speaker, filling Daniel's small office. "I'm calling to make something very clear. Don't contact Stella. Throw that music box away. It's over." Daniel's fingers flew across his keyboard, ensuring every word was being recorded. Patricia had joined us via conference call, listening in silence. "I'm not throwing away your father's gift to Stella," I said, keeping my voice steady. "Of course not, because you're living in the past, clinging to a dead man who's been gone for 2 years. His voice shifted, took on that false sympathy I'd heard him use with investors. "You're 68 years old, Mom. Your judgment is slipping. Your behavior at the party wasn't normal. People noticed." I looked at Daniel. He mouthed, "Keep him talking." "My judgment is fine, Evan." "Really? Because from where I'm sitting, it looks like you need help. Professional supervision. A care facility where people can look after you properly." My hands clenched in my lap. "I don't need a nursing home. I have witnesses who will testify you're not capable of managing your own affairs. I have documentation. When the time comes, I'll take the legal steps necessary to ensure you're properly cared for." Then his voice went cold, calculated. "It's what Dad would have wanted." Something in me snapped. "Don't you dare tell me what your father would have wanted." "I know he wouldn't want you confused and angry, clinging to the past like some senile—" "Your father wanted you to be better than this." Silence. Then I heard ice cubes clinking in a glass. Whiskey. Always whiskey when Evan was cornered. "You know what the worst part was, Mom?" His voice dropped almost conversational, like we were discussing the weather instead of my dead husband. "When Dad got sick. Stage 4 pancreatic cancer. The oncologist said there was a treatment option, experimental, expensive, 30% success rate." My blood turned to ice. "He begged me to help with the costs. $200,000. Said he wanted to see Stella grow up. Wanted to walk her down the aisle someday." "Evan, don't—" I told him no. The world stopped. $200,000 for a 30% chance. That's not an investment, Mom. That's throwing money away. I made a rational business decision. "You let your father die." The words came out as a whisper. "I saved $200,000. He died anyway, exactly like the statistics predicted. The treatment would have been a waste." He took a drink. I could hear the ice rattling. "At least I was right about the numbers. I'm always right about the numbers." Tears streamed down my face. Daniel pushed a box of tissues toward me, his expression carefully neutral. "You killed him," I said. "I made a business decision, something you're clearly no longer capable of understanding." His voice turned sharp. "Remember what I said, Mom. Stay away from Stella. Stay away from my family. I know how to remove obstacles when they become problematic." The line went dead. I sat there, phone still pressed to my ear, unable to move. Daniel stopped the recording. "We got it. All of it. The conservatorship threat, the admission about Henry's treatment, and that last statement, remove obstacles, that's a direct threat." Patricia's voice came through the speaker, tight with controlled anger. "That son of a bitch just handed us everything we need." Friday morning, I sat in a waiting room at UCSF Memory Center that smelled like antiseptic and anxiety. The walls were covered with calming beach photographs that didn't calm anyone. Patricia had arranged this evaluation within 24 hours of Evan's phone call. Dr. Sarah Bennett was apparently the most respected neurologist in San Francisco. Her assessments carried serious weight in court. A nurse called my name. Dr. Bennett's office was exactly what you'd expect diplomas from Johns Hopkins and Stanford medical journals stacked neatly, a framed photo of two teenagers who probably didn't appreciate having a genius for a mother. Dr. Bennett herself was in her late 40s with the kind of focused intensity that made you sit up straight. "Mrs. Sullivan," she gestured to a chair, "Patricia Williams speaks highly of you. I understand your son has filed for conservatorship based on alleged cognitive decline. Let's find out if there's any truth to that." The next 3 hours were the most thorough examination of my brain I'd ever experienced. Pattern recognition tests where I had to identify sequences in visual puzzles. Memory tests where she read me a story and I had to repeat it back then, recall it again 20 minutes later. Problem-solving exercises. Mathematical reasoning. An MRI scan that involved lying perfectly still in a machine that sounded like a construction site. Dr. Bennett reviewed the results while I waited in her office, wondering if 68 years of living had left cracks Evan could exploit. Finally, she looked up. "Mrs. Sullivan, I'm going to be direct. Your son is either profoundly mistaken or deliberately lying." Relief flooded through me so powerfully I had to grip the armrests. "Your cognitive function is not just normal for your age, it's superior. Pattern recognition in the 95th percentile. Memory recall perfect across all tested domains. Your MRI shows a completely healthy brain with no signs of dementia, vascular disease, or any neurological condition that would impair judgment." She handed me a sealed envelope. "My official report states clearly you have zero cognitive impairment and are fully competent to manage your own affairs, medical decisions, and finances." "Whatever, doctor." Morrison claimed in his evaluation, and yes, Patricia told me about him, it has no basis in objective medical reality. She leaned forward. "If your son tries to have you declared incompetent, I'll testify. And Mrs. Sullivan, don't let anyone make you doubt yourself. Your mind is as sharp as it's ever been." Monday morning arrived with a knock on my door that had official authority written all over it. The process server handed me a manila envelope and disappeared down the hallway of my apartment building before I could even say thank you. Inside was a thick stack of documents with a blue cover sheet, petition for conservatorship of person and estate. Petitioner Evan James Sullivan, proposed conservatee, Lucy Margaret Sullivan. I sat at my kitchen table and forced myself to read every word. The petitioner requests the court appoint him as conservator for Lucy Margaret Sullivan, age 68, who is no longer capable of managing her own affairs due to progressive cognitive decline and impaired judgment. The petition cited psychiatric evaluation by Dr. Richard Morrison documenting memory lapses and delusional behavior. Witness statements from the April investor event describing confused and agitated conduct, financial mismanagement regarding obsessive fixation on worthless antiques, safety risks from inability to recognize appropriate social boundaries. Every word painted me as a confused old woman who couldn't be trusted with her own life. At the bottom, hearing scheduled for Thursday, May 2nd, 4 days from now. If Evan won, he would control everything. Where I lived, what medical care I received, who I could see, how I spent my money, and most importantly, Stella's $27 million trust fund. I called Patricia immediately. "He's moving faster than expected," she said, her voice tight. "Expedited hearing in 4 days, that's aggressive. But Lucy, we have Dr. Bennett's evaluation. We have evidence of his crimes. He doesn't know we've been building a case for the past week. Can he actually do this? If the court believes you're incompetent, yes. Conservatorships are weaponized in inheritance disputes all the time. But we're ready to fight." Patricia paused. "There's something else. I just got a call from Westwood Elementary. Evans removed you from Stella's authorized contact list. You can't pick her up from school anymore. Can't be listed as emergency contact. School policy requires them to honor parental requests unless there's a court order." The words hit like a physical blow. "He's isolating me from Stella. It's a tactic. Cut you off emotionally, make you feel powerless. But Lucy, listen to me, we're not playing his game. We're going on offense." Tuesday afternoon, my phone rang with a number I didn't recognize. "Mrs. Sullivan," a woman's voice carefully controlled. "This is Jessica. We need to talk, privately, today." I almost hung up, but something in her voice made me pause. "Why would I?" "Because Evan is leaving me, and I know things that can destroy him. We met at Cafe Reverie on Fillmore Street. Upscale quiet, the kind of place where Pacific Heights money went to hide. Jessica sat at a back table, designer sunglasses pushed up in her hair, expensive jewelry catching the low light. But her makeup couldn't quite hide the stress cracks, dark circles, tight-mouthed hands that wouldn't stay still. I slid into the chair across from her, my phone already recording in my jacket pocket. "Thank you for coming." She didn't waste time on pleasantries. "Evan is planning to run Thursday night, right after your conservatorship hearing. Singapore Airlines first class, 3 tickets. "I know about the tickets." Her eyes widened slightly. "Then you know about her. Olivia Harrison. His mistress, 28 years old, works at the firm suing him." Jessica's laugh was bitter. "He thinks I don't know. 6 months, Lucy. He's been seeing her for 6 months, planning our divorce from Singapore, planning to take Stella." She pulled out her phone and slid it across the table. The screen showed photos Evan and a young blonde woman laughing at some restaurant I didn't recognize, holding hands, text messages, "I love you, and can't wait for our new life," and Jessica's dead weight. "I have everything," Jessica said. Photos, text messages, financial documents showing he's been moving money offshore for months, hotel receipts, flight confirmations, everything you need to destroy him in court. She leaned forward. "I'll testify against him. I'll give you all of it. But I want something in return." Here it was, the real reason for this meeting. What custody of Stella, and 50% of Henry's inheritance? The cafe seemed to go silent around us. "You want custody? Evan's unfit, you're trying to prove that. I can help. My testimony about his abuse, his affair, his plans to flee the country. He loses everything." She straightened her shoulders. "But Stella needs a parent, someone stable. I can provide that if I have the financial resources. $13 million for stability. The other half stays in trust for Stella. Education, future, whatever. I'm not being unreasonable, Lucy. I'm being practical. Everyone benefits except Evan." I studied her face carefully. "Tell me about Stella. How would you care for her?" Something flickered in Jessica's expression. Impatience. Calculation. "Stella is resilient. She'll adjust. Children do." "That's not what I asked. Would you help with homework? Read bedtime stories? Take her to the park on weekends?" Jessica's mask cracked. "Lucy, let's be honest. I'm not a natural mother. I didn't sign up to raise Evan's daughter. But Stella's tough. She'll manage. We'd send her to boarding school. Switzerland has excellent institutions, best education money can buy." "Boarding school? She's 7 years old. She'd get a world-class education, make international connections, learn independence." Jessica's voice took on an edge of irritation. "It's better than anything Evan would provide, certainly better than emotional manipulation." She pulled out a USB drive and set it on the table. "Everything's on here, but I want a written agreement I get custody with $13 million for expenses. Stella gets the other $13 million in trust. Fair right. I picked up the USB drive feeling its weight. And if I don't agree, then I keep this evidence. Maybe I work out my own deal with Evan. Maybe I let you two destroy each other while I protect my interests." She stood adjusting her sunglasses. "You have until tomorrow morning. After that, my offer expires." She walked away without waiting for a response. I sat alone, the USB drive in my hand, evidence that could destroy Evan. From a woman who wanted to ship my 7-year-old granddaughter to another continent for $13 million. Thursday morning, I walked into courtroom 304 of San Francisco Superior Court, feeling like I was entering a battlefield. Wood-paneled walls, high ceilings, the judge's bench elevated like a throne, gallery seats filled with law students taking notes and a few reporters who'd gotten wind of a tech CEO versus elderly mother story. Patricia sat beside me at the respondent's table, files stacked precisely. Across the aisle, Evan sat with his attorney Mitchell Bradford, looking confident in an expensive suit that probably cost more than my monthly rent. Judge Maria Rodriguez entered a woman in her 50s with steel gray hair and eyes that missed nothing. "All rise." We stood. She settled into her chair, reviewing documents. "In the matter of Evan Sullivan petitioner versus Lucy Sullivan respondent, petition for conservatorship of person and estate. Mr. Bradford, you may proceed." Bradford stood smooth and polished. "Your Honor, this is a straightforward case. The respondent, Lucy Sullivan, is 68 years old and exhibiting clear signs of cognitive decline. She's made irrational decisions, demonstrated confusion in public settings, and poses a risk to herself and others. Her son, Evan Sullivan, seeks only to ensure his mother receives proper care and supervision. Judge Rodriguez looked at me, then at Bradford. Present your evidence. Bradford called Dr. Richard Morrison first. The psychiatrist took the stand, 61 years old, expensive suit, practiced demeanor. He'd done this before, many times. Based on my evaluation of observed behaviors and medical history, Morrison said smoothly, Mrs. Sullivan exhibits symptoms consistent with early-stage dementia, memory lapses, impaired judgment, difficulty managing complex tasks. In my professional opinion, she requires supervised care. Patricia stood for cross-examination, moving with the precision of a surgeon. Dr. Morrison, how much were you paid for this evaluation? My consultation fee, which is $5,000. Patricia pulled out a document and handed it to the judge. Your Honor, I'd like to submit Exhibit A, a wire transfer receipt showing Dr. Morrison received $50,000 from Evan Sullivan 2 days before filing his report. 10 times his stated fee. The courtroom stirred. Morrison's face went red. Dr. Morrison, Patricia continued, her voice like ice. Is it true your medical license was revoked in Nevada in 2019 for providing fraudulent expert testimony in conservatorship cases? That matter was complicated. Yes or no, doctor? Morrison's jaw tightened. The Nevada board made an error in judgment. Patricia turned to the judge. Your Honor, I submit Nevada Medical Board disciplinary records. Dr. Morrison's license was permanently revoked for systematic fraud, providing false testimony in 3 separate cases where elderly individuals were placed under conservatorship against their will and their assets were subsequently drained by family members. She turned back to Morrison. You're essentially a hired gun who says whatever people pay you to say, aren't you? Objection? Bradford was on his feet. Overruled, Judge Rodriguez said quietly, making notes. Continue, Ms. Williams. No further questions for this witness. Next came Derek Hammond, Evans' business partner. He testified about my concerning behavior at the investor party. Patricia produced the email within minutes. Mr. Hammond, did Evan Sullivan promise you a 5% equity stake in his company in exchange for your testimony today? Derek's face went pale. That was a separate business arrangement. Answer the question. Did he promise you equity in exchange for testifying that Lucy Sullivan is incompetent? Silence stretched across the courtroom. Then quietly, yes. Judge Rodriguez's expression hardened. Mr. Bradford, I'm noting potential witness tampering. Continue. Then Evan took the stand. He projected sincerity and concern, a performance worthy of an Oscar. Your Honor, this is the hardest thing I've ever had to do. I love my mother, but I've watched her decline over the past year. Confused episodes, memory problems, irrational decisions. I'm terrified she'll hurt herself. I just want her safe. Patricia stood holding a thick folder. Mr. Sullivan, you claim your mother had a confused episode at a cafe on Chestnut Street, April 15th. Can you describe it? She couldn't remember her coffee order. Got agitated with staff. It was concerning. Patricia pulled out phone records. Your Honor, Mrs. Sullivan's phone location data shows she was nowhere near Chestnut Street that day. She was in North Beach, confirmed by security footage at Morrison's timepieces. This confused episode never happened. Evan's composure cracked slightly. I may have gotten the date wrong. You also claimed she had an agitated outburst at her bank, but bank security footage shows a calm, routine transaction. These incidents were fabricated, weren't they? I was concerned. I may have misremembered. Patricia's voice went cold. Mr. Sullivan, are you currently under SEC investigation for securities fraud? Bradford jumped up. Objection, relevance. Goes to credibility, Your Honor, Patricia said calmly. The petitioner is facing criminal investigation and substantial debts. This conservatorship would give him control over his mother's assets and his daughter's trust fund. Judge Rodriguez leaned forward. I'll allow it. Answer the question, Mr. Sullivan. Evan's face tightened. There's an ongoing inquiry. Yes or no, yes. The courtroom was dead silent. Patricia let that sink in, then delivered the killing blow. Is it true you refused to pay for your father's cancer treatment 2 years ago because you deemed it not cost-effective? Evan's face went white. Your father, Henry Sullivan, told multiple people, including his attorney, that you refused to help fund experimental treatment that might have extended his life. You chose money over your father, and now you're trying to seize control of your mother's assets under the guise of concern. Isn't that the truth? You don't understand. No further questions. Patricia called me to the stand. My hands were steady as I placed them on the Bible, as I swore to tell the truth, as I sat down and looked at my son across the courtroom. Patricia led me through my testimony, my daily routine, cooking errands, managing my household, my relationship with Henry, my memories of Stella, specific dates, events, conversations. I spoke clearly. No confusion, no hesitation. Mrs. Sullivan, can you tell the court about the music box? I described finding it in the trash, taking it to Tommy Morrison, the discovery of the hidden compartment, the stock certificates worth $27 million, Henry's letter explaining everything. Patricia submitted Dr. Bennett's UCSF evaluation. Judge Rodriguez read it carefully, then looked at Evan with something close to contempt. I've heard enough. She set down her papers. This petition is not only without merit, it appears to be a calculated attempt to seize control of the respondent's assets and isolate her from her granddaughter. She looked directly at Evan. Mrs. Lucy Sullivan has demonstrated complete mental competence. Dr. Bennett's evaluation from one of the most respected neurologists in this state is thorough and credible. In contrast, Dr. Morrison's testimony is tainted by financial incentive and a history of fraud. Her voice hardened. Furthermore, this court is deeply troubled by evidence of witness tampering, fabricated incidents, and what appears to be a pattern of financial crimes and elder abuse. The gavel came down like thunder. Petition dismissed with prejudice. Furthermore, I am referring this matter to the District Attorney's Office for investigation of elder abuse, witness tampering, and perjury. Court adjourned. Outside the courthouse, sunlight felt too bright for the darkness we'd just exposed. Patricia was on her phone coordinating next steps. I stood on the steps trying to process the victory that felt incomplete. Daniel appeared at my elbow, his expression grim. Lucy, we have a problem. What, Evan changed his flight. Not Friday night. Tonight, Thursday, 11 p.m., Singapore Airlines. 3 passengers, Evan Sullivan, Olivia Harrison, and Stella Rose Sullivan. The victory turned to ice in my chest. He's going to take her tonight. You have less than 12 hours before he disappears with Stella forever. I looked back at the courthouse where Evan was exiting with Bradford, his face promising violence. The battle was won, but the war had just entered its final desperate phase. Thursday afternoon. 6 hours until Evan's flight to Singapore. Patricia's office had transformed into a war room. Whiteboards covered with timelines in red marker, maps of San Francisco, contact numbers for emergency services. Daniel marked critical times in bold 11 o'clock p.m. Flight departs. Updated intel, he said, spreading documents across the conference table. Evan's apartment building. Security is tight, but I have contacts. Plainclothes officers can be positioned in the lobby. Marked unit around the corner. Patricia was on her phone, rapid-fire conversations with CPS family court judges, anyone who could help. She hung up and turned to us. Emergency guardianship hearing is scheduled for tomorrow morning, but Stella will be in Singapore by then unless we stop Evan tonight. My phone buzzed. A number I didn't recognize, but I knew who it was. Jessica. I answered on speaker. He's leaving me. Her voice was frantic, stripped of the calculated control from our cafe meeting. Evan's taking that woman and Stella tonight. He called me dead weight. He's packing Stella's things right now. She's crying, Lucy. She's crying and asking for you. Something twisted in my chest. Where are you? In the bedroom. He doesn't know I'm calling. I want to destroy him. Whatever you're planning, I want in. Patricia, Daniel, and I exchanged looks. This was our chance. Jessica, I said carefully, can you keep Stella at the apartment until 6 p.m.? Why? Tell Evan you want one last family dinner, Daniel said, leaning toward the phone. Make it sound like you're accepting the situation. He'll think he's won flights not until 11 he has time. Silence on the other end. I could almost hear her calculating. If I do this, I want written assurances about custody, about money. My hand tightened on the phone. Stella is crying in the next room, Jessica. Do this because it's right, or do it for yourself, I don't care. But do it now. Another pause. Then quietly, fine. She hung up. Patricia outlined the plan with military precision. 6 p.m. dinner. We have Stella in one location where CPS can intervene safely. Legal basis imminent danger. Evan has a flight to a country with complicated extradition documented abuse, and he's fleeing SEC investigation. She looked at me. Lucy, you'll wear a wire. Everything Evan says gets recorded. If he threatens you, admits to the embezzlement, says anything about taking Stella, we have it on tape. Police can intervene immediately. Daniel produced a small device from his bag. Digital recorder, wireless transmission to my van outside, nearly invisible. He showed me the adhesive patch that would go under my blouse, smaller than a quarter. What if he suspects? I asked. He won't, Daniel said. He thinks he won today. He's not worried about a 68-year-old woman he just tried to have declared incompetent. He met my eyes. But Lucy, understand the risk. If Evan realizes this is a trap, he might grab Stella and run early. Officers will be ready, but there could be a window, maybe 30 seconds, where Stella is in danger. You'll be in that room with him. I thought about Stella standing in the elevator facing the corner. About Henry's letter, trust Lucy. She'll protect you when I can't. About a 7-year-old girl who deserved better than parents who saw her as either a burden or a bank account. I'll do it. 5:30 p.m. Daniel attached the wire in the back of his surveillance van parked 3 blocks from Evan's building. Keep him talking, he said, testing the transmission. If he threatens you or Stella, if he admits anything about the stock certificates or taking her out of the country, stay calm. We're listening. Officers can be inside in under 60 seconds. Patricia handed me her business card. Speed dial 1. If anything goes wrong, anything, you call me. My phone buzzed. Jessica, he agreed. Dinner at 6. He smiled, Lucy. He wants to rub it in your face. Good, Daniel said, reading over my shoulder. He's not suspicious. He thinks he's invincible. I stepped out of the van. The fog was rolling in from the bay, shrouding the city in gray. Somewhere above Evan's penthouse glowed like a beacon. Lisa Rodriguez from CPS pulled up in an unmarked car. Early 40s, kind eyes, the weariness of someone who'd seen too many broken families. Mrs. Sullivan, she shook my hand. We're ready. The moment you give the signal, the moment Evan says anything that confirms he's taking Stella against her wishes, or fleeing the country, I'm coming in with police backup. I nodded, not trusting my voice. The elevator ride to the penthouse felt like ascending to an execution. The wire pressed cold against my skin. My heart hammered so hard I was afraid the recording would pick it up. The doors opened. Evan stood waiting in the foyer. Stella beside him with a small pink backpack. Behind them, 3 expensive suitcases lined up by the door like soldiers. My granddaughter's eyes were red from crying. When she saw me, she tried to run forward, but Evan's hand on her shoulder held her in place. Mom, his smile was cold, triumphant. So glad you could make it to our farewell dinner. The wire recorded everything. I walked past him into the dining room. Floor-to-ceiling windows overlooking the city. Table set for 5. Evan at the head. Jessica opposite Olivia Harrison beside Evan, looking deeply uncomfortable. Stella next to an empty chair meant for me. Stella slipped her small hand into mine under the table. I squeezed 3 times. Our signal. I love you. She squeezed back 4 times. I love you too. Evan poured wine with practiced ease. Let's make this civilized, shall we? One last family meal before Stella and I travel. Where are you traveling? I kept my voice neutral. Singapore. Business opportunity. Stella will love it. International school's new experiences. He reached over and ruffled Stella's hair. She flinched. He didn't notice. Jessica sat rigid, her role as dutiful wife wearing thin. Olivia checked her phone every 30 seconds, clearly wishing she was anywhere else. I let the conversation drift through appetizers, small talk about nothing. Evan performing graciousness while the clock ticked toward his escape. Then I set down my fork. Evan, I need to tell you something. About your father. About the music box you threw away. His jaw tightened. That worthless piece of junk? I reached into my purse slowly, deliberately, and pulled out copies of the stock certificates. 4 sheets of paper that would change everything. I spread them on the table one by one. The room went silent. It had a secret compartment, I said quietly. Inside were stock certificates, 15% of Apex Capital. Your father invested $200,000 in March 2008 when no bank would touch you. Jessica's fork clattered to her plate. Olivia stared at the documents. Evan's face had gone white. I continued, my voice steady. When you sold the company to Tech Venture Group in October 2016 for $180 million, Stella's 15% was worth $27 million. I pointed to the registration line on each certificate. In trust for Stella Rose Sullivan, your father's signature, witnessed by his attorney, Patricia Williams. Evan's hands gripped the edge of the table. That money funded my company. You never disclosed those shares in the acquisition, I said. You signed papers claiming 100% ownership, but you only owned 85%. The other 15% belonged to Stella. I looked him in the eye. You stole $27 million from your own daughter. The explosion was immediate. It's my money. Evan slammed his fist on the table. Wine glasses jumped. Stella whimpered and pressed closer to me. I built that company from nothing. Dad just wrote a check that money is mine. Jessica stood abruptly, chair scraping. Evan, tell me this isn't true. Shut up, Jessica. This is your fault, insisting on this stupid dinner. Olivia grabbed her purse hands, trembling. You stole from your own child. I thought you were just aggressive in business. But you're a thief. She backed toward the door. I'm done. Don't call me. Don't contact me. We're finished. Olivia, wait. But she was already gone. The door slammed. Evan stared at me with pure hatred. You think you're smart in 5 hours. Stella and I are on a plane to Singapore, and there's nothing you can do about it. Evan, stop talking, Jessica said, her voice shaking. I'm her father. I have legal custody. I can take her anywhere. He grabbed his wine glass, draining it. Those certificates are probably fake. Something you cooked up with that lawyer. No one will believe you. I'm not the one who needs to believe me, Evan. What? I kept my voice calm, even as my heart raced. You've just confessed to everything. His eyes narrowed. What are you talking about? You admitted the money was yours, acknowledging the 15% exists. You confirmed you're taking Stella out of the country in 5 hours. You're fleeing with legal custody to somewhere extradition is complicated. I looked at him steadily. All recorded, all admissible in court. Understanding dawned on his face, then rage. You're wearing a wire. And there are police officers in your building lobby. CPS is waiting downstairs. You're not taking Stella anywhere. Evan moved faster than I expected for someone who'd drunk half a bottle of wine. He lunged toward Stella, grabbing for her arm. I pulled her behind me, standing between my son and my granddaughter. Don't touch her. She's my daughter. She's a terrified 7-year-old child you were planning to drag to another country to control her inheritance. The front door burst open. 4 SFPD officers' badges displayed. Lisa Rodriguez right behind them. Evan James Sullivan, you're under arrest for attempted custodial interference, securities fraud, embezzlement, and elder abuse. You have the right to remain silent. Anything you say can and will be used against you in a court of law. They turned him around, cuffing his hands behind his back. Evan's face went through shock, denial, fury, all in the span of seconds. This is insane. I'm her father. I have rights. Call Bradford. Call my lawyer. I knelt beside Stella, covering her ears as they led Evan past. He looked at me, once pure venomous hatred, promising revenge he'd never get to take. But it didn't matter. He was done. Lisa Rodriguez approached with another social worker. Mrs. Sullivan, we need to discuss Stella's immediate placement. Jessica stood quickly, composing herself. Of course. Stella will stay with me. I'm her stepmother. I can provide stability. Lisa's expression was gentle but firm. Mrs. Sullivan, we have concerns about both parents. We have a recording from earlier this week where you discussed sending Stella to boarding school in Switzerland to access her inheritance. Your motivation was financial security, not Stella's well-being. Jessica's face went pale. She looked at me. You recorded our conversation at the cafe. You wanted to ship my granddaughter to another continent for $13 million, I said quietly. Yes, I recorded every word. Lisa knelt beside Stella. Sweetheart, you're going to come with us for a little while, okay, until the courts decide what's best. You'll be safe. Stella looked up at me, tears streaming down her face. Can't I stay with Grandma Lucy? We're working on that. Your grandmother filed for emergency guardianship, but right now we need to make sure you're in a safe placement. Stella's small arms wrapped around my waist. You'll come get me. You promise? I knelt down, holding her face in both hands, the same way Henry used to hold mine when he needed me to really hear him. I promise. Your grandfather left me everything I needed to keep you safe. It's going to take a few more days, but I will bring you home. To my apartment with the music box, to wherever you want home to be." She hugged me so tight I could barely breathe. Lisa took Stella's hand gently. "Come on, honey." I watched them lead my granddaughter out, small backpack on her shoulders, looking back at me every few steps until the elevator doors closed. The wire against my chest had captured everything, including the sound of my heart breaking. Friday morning. Patricia's office. Emergency guardianship hearing in 3 hours. Daniel had delivered his final report overnight. Jessica sat in custody at the SFPD facing charges of conspiracy and attempted extortion. Evan was in a holding cell, downtown, bail set at $2 million he didn't have. But I couldn't focus on any of that. Patricia and Daniel sat across from me reviewing our case for the hearing. Everything looked good. Strong evidence of Evan's crimes. Jessica's unfitness documented. My competency proven beyond doubt. But something Henry had written in his letter kept gnawing at me. I went behind her back, and I'm not proud of that. "Lucy," Patricia's voice pulled me back. "What's wrong? We're about to win." I looked at these two people who'd worked so hard to help me save Stella. They deserved the truth. The whole truth. "I need to tell you something," I said quietly. "About Henry. About why he never told me about the $200,000 investment." I took a breath. "Because I told him not to." Patricia and Daniel exchanged glances. "In March 2008, we were struggling. I was working full-time as a NICU nurse at UCSF. Henry had just been laid off from his software engineering job. The dot-com crash was still reverberating through the tech industry. We had exactly $200,000 in savings, our entire retirement fund." I stared at my hands. 68 years of wrinkles and age spots and the ghost of a wedding ring I'd worn for 40 years. Evan came to us desperate. His startup Apex Capital couldn't get funding. Every bank had turned him down. The venture capital firms wouldn't even take meetings. He needed $200,000 or he'd lose everything: his business, his reputation, his dream. Patricia was making notes. Daniel leaned forward, listening. "Henry wanted to help. He said, 'Lucy, he's our son. If we don't help him now, he'll never forgive us. And he'll never learn that family supports each other no matter what.'" I met their eyes. I said no. The words hung in the air. I refused. I told Henry we couldn't risk our retirement on a venture with a 90% failure rate. We had bills, a mortgage, medical expenses. My blood pressure medication alone was costing us $200 a month, even with insurance. We needed that safety net. My voice cracked. We fought for weeks. It was the worst fight in 40 years of marriage. I said terrible things. Told Henry he was being foolish, that he was choosing Evan over our future, that he was too emotional to see clearly. "What did Henry do?" Patricia asked gently. "He invested anyway, behind my back." I pulled out my phone, found the email I'd discovered 2 years ago while going through Henry's accounts after he died. Forwarded it to Patricia. "He took the $200,000 from our joint account, registered it in Stella's name so I couldn't reverse it. Then he told me what he'd done." Patricia read the email aloud. From Henry Sullivan to Patricia Williams, Esquire. Date March 20th, 2008. Subject: investment documentation. Patricia, please register the Apex Capital shares in my granddaughter's name. Stella Rose Sullivan, DOB. March 15th, 2008. Yes, I know she's only 5 days old. That's the point. Lucy is furious with me. We haven't spoken in a week. She's right to be angry. I went behind her back, risked our retirement, made a unilateral decision about money that belonged to both of us. But I believe in our son. And if this investment succeeds, Lucy and I will be fine. If it fails, at least I tried. More importantly, I'm registering this in Stella's name because I'm already seeing something in Evan that worries me. He talks about maximizing value and optimizing returns the way other people talk about breathing. He hasn't held his newborn daughter yet, says he'll bond with her when she's old enough to be interesting. Lucy says I'm being paranoid. Maybe I am, but I'd rather protect Stella now just in case. If something happens to me, Lucy needs to be able to access these shares to protect our granddaughter. Make sure the trust documents are ironclad. Henry, I didn't speak to him for a month, I said quietly. I slept in the guest room, ate my meals separately. I felt betrayed. He'd risked our future without my consent, made a decision that affected both of us. I wiped my eyes with the back of my hand. But Henry, he just waited. Every morning he'd leave a cup of tea outside the guest room door. Earl Grey with milk and 1 sugar, exactly how I liked it. And a note. I pulled up photos on my phone. I'd saved them all. 30 notes, 1 for each day I'd refused to speak to him. Day 1, I love you. I'm sorry. I'd understand if you never forgive me. Day 7, Evan's company got its first client today. He called me so excited. Reminded me of when he was 8 and won the science fair. Day 15, I saw Dr. Patterson today. Blood pressure's up. He says stress isn't good for me. I told him the most stressful thing is sleeping without you. Day 23. Stella smiled today. Not gas, a real smile. Jessica sent a photo. She has your eyes, Lucy. Our granddaughter has your beautiful eyes. Day 30. I was wrong to go behind your back, but I wasn't wrong to believe in family. Please come back to bed. I miss you. Day 30, I said, my voice breaking. I walked into our bedroom and found Henry sitting on the edge of the bed crying. I hadn't seen him cry since his mother's funeral. I closed my eyes, remembering. I'm sorry, Lucy, he whispered. You were right. I should have listened to you. I sat beside him. 40 years of marriage in the space between us. Did we lose it all? I asked. No, Apex just got venture funding. They're going to make it, I think, but that's not the point. He looked at me with red-rimmed eyes. I broke your trust, and I don't know how to fix it. I took his hand. You fix it by never doing it again. By including me in every decision from now on. By remembering that we're a team. I will. I promise. He kept that promise for the next 16 years until the day he died. When Apex succeeded, I told Patricia and Daniel, when the company grew and became profitable, I thought Henry would tell Evan about the investment. But he never did. Because he saw what Evan was becoming, Patricia said. Yes, the boy who built birdhouses for charity was gone. In his place was a man who valued profit over people, who saw his own daughter as a future asset, who talked about maximizing ROI at his father's hospital bedside. I looked at the music box on Patricia's desk. Henry kept the secret, registered the shares in Stella's name so they couldn't be touched, built this protection into his will, the character clause, the trust provisions, all of it. And he never told you, Daniel said. Not even when he was dying. He tried. That conversation in hospice, this box holds more than music. He was trying to tell me, but he was so weak and the morphine made him confused. I thought he was being sentimental about an old music box. I stood, walked to the window. San Francisco stretched out below, fog burning off in the morning sun. The $200,000 that destroyed my marriage for a month became the $27 million that will save my granddaughter. Henry knew all along. He knew Evan would fail the character test. He knew I'd need these tools. I turned back to them. And he trusted me to finish what he started, even though I'd been so angry at him for starting it. Patricia came to stand beside me. Henry was playing the long game. He turned his son's betrayal into his granddaughter's salvation, Daniel added. I was furious at him for hiding the investment, I said. But he wasn't hiding it from me, he was hiding it for me. So when the time came, I'd have the weapon I needed. I touched the music box. Every piece was intentional. Hiding the certificates so Evan couldn't find them, registering in Stella's name so they couldn't be transferred, writing that letter explaining everything, the character clause in his will, leaving the music box specifically for me to give to Stella. My voice dropped to a whisper. Henry didn't live to see this battle, but he won it anyway. Friday afternoon, family court, Judge Catherine Thompson presiding. This was it, the final battle. Patricia had assembled our case with surgical precision. Medical evaluations, financial documents, witness testimonies, video evidence of Evan's abuse, recordings of Jessica's cold calculation. On the other side, Jessica's attorney James Bradley trying to salvage something from the wreckage. Judge Thompson entered 60-years-old kind eyes that had seen every dirty trick families could play on each other. In the matter of guardianship for Stella Rose Sullivan, age 7, I've reviewed all submitted materials. She looked over her reading glasses at the assembled attorneys. This is an unusual case. She turned to me. Mrs. Sullivan, you're 68 years old. You live on a fixed income in a 2-bedroom apartment. You're asking this court to grant you full custody of a 7-year-old child. Tell me why. I stood. Patricia had told me I didn't have to, but I wanted to look the judge in the eye. Your Honor, I'm not trying to replace Stella's parents. but I won't let her be hurt again. I gestured to the evidence folders. My son Evan embezzled $27 million from his daughter's trust. He emotionally abused her for years. He planned to flee the country with her to control her inheritance. He's currently in custody facing multiple felonies. I turned to Jessica. My daughter-in-law proposed sending Stella to boarding school in Switzerland so she could collect $13 million. She admitted she's not a natural mother and didn't sign up to raise Evan's daughter. She saw my granddaughter as a financial transaction. My voice softened. I'm 68, Your Honor. I can't give Stella another 50 years, but I can give her a childhood where she's loved, where mistakes are okay, where she doesn't have to be perfect to deserve affection. Judge Thompson made notes. The court has reviewed testimony from Stella's teacher, her school counselor, and Dr. Catherine Warren, the child psychologist who interviewed her 5 times this week. All recommend placement with you. She pressed a button and a screen descended from the ceiling. I'm going to show you something, Mrs. Sullivan. The court had Dr. Warren record her final session with Stella yesterday. I want you to watch. The video showed Stella in a child-friendly interview room. Toys and books scattered around, but she sat in a small chair, hands folded in her lap. Dr. Warren's voice gentle. Stella, can you tell me about your Grandma Lucy? Stella's face brightened. Grandma Lucy keeps her promises, just like Grandpa Henry did. She saved the music box when Daddy threw it away. What does the music box mean to you? It plays Claire de Lune. That's the song Grandpa played for me when I was scared. Grandma plays it for me now every night before bed. Tell me about living with your father. Stella's brightness faded. Daddy gets angry when I'm not perfect. He says I embarrass him. I try really hard, but I always mess up something. What about your stepmother, Jessica? She's nice sometimes, but she's always on her phone. She forgets to pick me up from school. Stella's voice got smaller. One time I waited for 2 hours. The teacher had to call Grandma Lucy. Where do you want to live, Stella? The little girl looked directly at the camera. With Grandma Lucy, in her apartment. It's small, but it's safe. Grandma doesn't yell when I make mistakes. She says it's okay to not be perfect. She makes me grilled cheese for dinner, and we play the music box, and she tells me stories about Grandpa Henry. Her voice dropped to a whisper. Please, can I stay with Grandma? I promise I'll be good. The video ended. The courtroom was silent. Judge Thompson removed her glasses, cleaned them carefully. When she put them back on, her eyes were bright with unshed tears. This court's primary concern is the child's best interests. I've reviewed all evidence and testimony carefully. She looked at Jessica. Mrs. Jessica Sullivans, your focus throughout these proceedings has been on financial considerations. When asked about caring for Stella, you proposed boarding school to make things easier. You see this child as a burden to be managed, not a person to be loved. This court finds you unfit for custody. Jessica's face crumpled. Judge Thompson turned to the gallery where Evan sat in handcuffs between 2 bailiffs allowed to attend via court order. Mr. Evan Sullivan, you have systematically abused your daughter emotionally for years. You embezzled her inheritance. You planned to flee the country with her to control her trust fund. You refused to pay for your father's cancer treatment. This court finds you unfit for custody and recommends the district attorney pursue criminal charges to the fullest extent. Then she looked at me. Mrs. Lucy Margaret Sullivan, you have demonstrated unwavering love for your granddaughter. You have the support of educators, medical professionals, and most importantly, Stella's trust. Your late husband built an extraordinary protection into his estate planning, and you have honored his wishes with integrity and courage. She raised her gavel. Custody granted. Full legal and physical custody to Lucy Margaret Sullivan, effective immediately. The gavel came down. Jessica Sullivan supervised visitation 2 hours per week, pending completion of parenting classes and financial counseling. Evan Sullivan, no visitation pending resolution of criminal charges. Another strike of the gavel. This arrangement serves Stella's best interests. Court adjourned. Outside the courthouse, sunlight broke through the fog like a promise. Lisa Rodriguez brought Stella out from the CPS office across the street. My granddaughter saw me and ran down the courthouse steps. I knelt down, catching her as she threw herself into my arms. Grandma, the lady said I get to go home with you forever. I held her face in both hands, looking into those green eyes, Henry's eyes. Yes, sweetheart, forever. To my apartment with the music box with your own room and all the grilled cheese sandwiches you can eat. Every night I get to stay every night. Every single night. I promise. She hugged me so tight I could barely breathe. I looked up to see Patricia wiping her eyes, Daniel giving me a thumbs up, Tommy Morrison standing at the edge of the crowd grinning. Lisa handed me a folder. Temporary custody order. Full hearing in 30 days to make it permanent, but it's a formality. Judge Thompson made her position very clear. I stood keeping Stella's hand in mine. What about Jessica? She accepted the terms. 2-hour supervised visits starting next month. She's enrolled in parenting classes. Lisa's expression softened. People can change, Mrs. Sullivan. Not always, but sometimes. We'll see. And Evan, district attorney filed formal charges this morning. Embezzlement, securities, fraud, elder abuse, attempted custodial interference. He's looking at 5 to 7 years. 5 to 7 years. By the time he got out, Stella would be a teenager, old enough to make her own decisions about whether she wanted a relationship with her father. Can I see him? Stella asked quietly. Everyone looked at her. Daddy, can I say goodbye? My heart broke and mended simultaneously. 7 years old, and she still had compassion for the man who'd hurt her. Someday, sweetheart, I said gently, when you're ready, when he's ready, but not today. She nodded, satisfied. We took the bus home. Stella said she liked the bus better than taxis because you could see more of the city. She sat pressed against the window, watching San Francisco roll past. I sat beside her, our hands linked. Grandma Lucy, yes, sweetheart. Is Grandpa Henry happy that I'm with you? I thought about Henry in hospice making me promise to protect Stella, hiding stock certificates in a music box because he knew that his son would fail the test of character. I think he's very happy. Good. She leaned her head against my shoulder. I miss him. Me too, baby. Me too. My apartment had never looked better. The guest room had been transformed in the past week. Patricia had sent her assistant to help. Fresh paint on the walls, soft lavender like Stella had mentioned liking once. A twin bed with a quilt I'd bought at a craft fair years ago. Bookshelves Tommy had built and installed yesterday while I was in court. And on the nightstand, Henry's music box. Stella walked into the room and stopped. This is mine. All yours. She set her backpack down carefully, then went to the music box, opened it with reverent fingers. Claire DeLune filled the small apartment. Can I put things in the secret compartment? She asked. I thought about Henry's stock certificate safely locked in Patricia's office safe, about the letter explaining everything, about $27 million that would be Stella's when she turned 25. What would you put in it? She pulled a photograph from her backpack, wrinkled and worn like it had been looked at many times. It showed Henry and Stella at Ocean Beach building a sandcastle. Stella couldn't have been more than 4. Henry's hair was already thin from chemotherapy, but his smile was genuine. This. So Grandpa's always here. We opened the secret compartment together. I showed her how the mechanism worked the way Tommy had shown me. She placed the photo inside carefully next to a new addition I'd made yesterday, a picture of the 3 of us, Henry, Stella, and me, taken that same day at the beach. Now it's really home, Stella said. That night I made grilled cheese sandwiches. Burned the first batch because I was too happy to focus, but Stella said she didn't mind. We ate at my small kitchen table, the one Henry and I had bought at a yard sale 40 years ago. The one where we'd shared 10,000 meals, arguments, reconciliations, and quiet evenings. After dinner, I tucked Stella into bed, wound the music box. Claire DeLune drifted through the apartment. Grandma Lucy, yes, sweetheart. Do I have to be perfect? The question stopped me cold. I sat on the edge of her bed. No, baby, you just have to be yourself. But what if I make mistakes? Then you make mistakes. That's how people learn and grow. I brushed hair from her forehead. I make mistakes all the time. Just this morning I burned your breakfast. She giggled. That was pretty bad. Exactly. But we survived, didn't we? I took her hand. Stella, the only thing I expect is that you try your best, not be the best, but try and be kind. Nothing you do will ever make me stop loving you. Nothing. 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 Not bad grades, not burned toast, not forgotten homework. Nothing. She pulled me into a hug. When I grow up, will I be like Daddy? I thought about Evan choosing money over love, about Henry who'd spent his life caring for others, about the choices we all make. You'll be like your grandfather, I said. Strong, wise, and full of love. But Stella, you get to choose who you become. Every single day you make choices about what kind of person you want to be. She looked down at Henry's watch on her wrist. I'd given it to her that afternoon, the one he'd left with Tommy for her. Grandpa chose to be kind, right? Yes. He chose love every single time, even when it was hard. Then that's what I want to choose too. After Stella fell asleep, I sat alone in my living room, Henry's picture watching from the wall. 3 months ago, I'd stood in Evan's penthouse watching my son throw a music box into the trash. I'd felt old, powerless, irrelevant. Tonight, I was a 68-year-old woman who'd taken on Silicon Valley lawyers, exposed embezzlement, survived a conservatorship attack, and brought her granddaughter home. I wasn't powerless. I'd never been powerless. I just needed to remember what Henry had spent 40 years teaching me, that love is the most powerful force in the world. That family means protecting each other even when it's hard. That legacy isn't about money, it's about values. The music box sat silent in Stella's room, holding past and future. Henry's gift and our new photographs side by side. Tomorrow we'd wake up and make breakfast. Probably burn the toast again. Walk to the park. Maybe visit Tommy's shop so Stella could learn about clockwork and precision and how small pieces work together to create something beautiful. One day at a time. That's all anyone can do. I picked up my phone, opened the voice memo app, and added a note to myself. Henry, we did it. Stella's home. She's safe. She's loved. The music box worked exactly as you planned. $27 million to protect her future, but more importantly, values to guide her life. You were right to invest in Evan, even though it cost us. Right to hide the certificates. Right to trust me with finishing what you started. I'm still angry you went behind my back, but I understand why. Sleep well, my love. Our granddaughter is home. I saved the memo, then deleted it. Some things didn't need to be preserved digitally. They lived in music boxes and grilled cheese dinners and the sound of a 7-year-old girl sleeping safely in the next room. Morning sunlight painted my kitchen gold. Stella stood on her step stool at the stove, concentrating on scrambled eggs with the intensity only an 8-year-old could bring to cooking. Not too much stirring, I reminded gently. Let them set a little. Exactly like Grandpa taught you. Exactly. She'd grown 3 inches. Her anxiety had decreased. Dr. Warren said the nightmares were down to once a month instead of every night. She'd made friends at her new school, brought home paintings that covered my refrigerator, and learned that B's were perfectly acceptable grades. She plated the eggs only slightly overcooked, and we sat at our table. Our morning ritual. Breakfast together. No rushing. No criticism. Just time. Grandma, can we add new memories to the music box? She pulled a photograph from her pocket. The 2 of us at the zoo last weekend by the elephant exhibit. Both of us laughing at something ridiculous. This one. So the box has Grandpa's love and our new love together. We opened the music box carefully. Placed the photo in the hidden compartment beside the others. New memories layered with old. Healing built on a foundation of protection. Now it's really home, Stella said simply. Jessica's supervised visit. She'd completed her parenting classes. Finished financial counseling, paid off her gambling debts. She showed up on time sober with a book about elephants she'd remembered Stella liking. They sat together in the common room at the Family Services Center reading. Jessica asked about Stella's spelling test, remembered the names of her friends. 2 hours, small steps. She's trying, Grandma, Stella said afterward, cautiously hopeful. Maybe people could change. Not always, not easily, but sometimes. I tucked Stella into bed, wound the music box. Claire de Lune filled the room. Grandma, yes, sweetheart, are you happy I'm here? Every single day. Good, because I'm happy too, even though I'm still sad sometimes about Daddy. That's okay, we can be both, she smiled. Yeah, both. I sat beside her bed until her breathing deepened. The music box played its final notes. Legacy isn't something you leave behind when you die. It's something you build every day, in quiet moments and hard ones, in the lessons you teach, the values you model, the love you give freely without conditions. Stella was learning that now, learning that time is precious, not to be wasted chasing perfection, but to be spent loving and being loved, learning that people matter more than possessions, learning that she got to choose every day what kind of person she wanted to become. And one day when she was ready, she'd pass those lessons on. For now, we had mornings full of laughter and slightly burned eggs, Afternoons at museums and bus rides where she fell asleep on my shoulder. Evenings with music boxes and bedtime stories, and Henry's watch ticking softly on a small wrist. And that was enough. More than enough. That was everything.